times. So follow along, and if you have any questions, you can email me, and I'll just get started. So the map that I'm going to be using is from Heroic Maps, and they do some really fantastic maps. These are the raw files downloaded um, from DM's Guild, and I will start with the ground level full. I usually use the grids, so I'll do the ground level full grid with no roof. So, and then I also use Adobe Photoshop. So I'll open with Adobe Photoshop. Now you can also use programs like GIMP, which are free versions of photo editors that can probably do similar stuff. This is actually the gardens of the Edgemore Garden. So Heroic Maps does their maps really high quality. You can see the marbling in the stone and fantastic work there. And they do them generally at about 330, a little bit more than 330 pixels per square. So the first thing I do when I'm doing a map, and I like to get the maps nice and light for use on the virtual tabletop, meaning that they're as small a file size as I can get them, but they have as good a quality as I can get with that file size. So I use a tool called the selection tool here, and I'm just going to block out a random area, but then I right click on it and I can transform that selection. And I'll try and line up the upper corner with a square that's on the map here. So I just get it kind of close. I have snap to grid turned on, so I'll go to the grid. But then I can drag it and I can zoom all the way into the pixel level so I can see exactly where the break is in the grid. So I do that. Now I have this thing anchored in the top left corner here. I have its position 330, 330, which means that map is exactly at 330 pixels per square. This map is a large one. I think it's probably 30 inches by 30 inches, or 30 squares by 30 squares. So I should be able to come in here on the width of this selection and change it to 330, and it's actually slightly over. That's like 330.3 times 30, which comes out to be 9910 pixels. And 9910 pixels. Okay, and you can see it extends off the map a little bit to the right and to the bottom, but that's because I don't have it in the top left corner. So now I'm going to change this to 0 and that to 0. That puts it on the top left corner. And then I'm going to zoom in on the corners here and just make sure they're lined up perfectly. So they're a little bit short, like 1 pixel short. So I'll just go 9909 on that one. And then on the south one, you can see the grid kind of cut off a little bit. And it might be cut off the whole way across. Looks like it is. So we'll assume it's going to be the same. 9909. All right, once I have my selection changed the way I want it, I hit the check mark and that sets it. And then I'm going to use the crop tool. And the crop outline will default to what I set the selection tool at. And if I click in the middle of it, it'll allow me to then accept it. So that's cropped it to that size. So Heroic Maps does these maps, and they do virtual tabletop versions of them too, and they may or may not have just slight little inconsistencies like that on the edge. Most people that really matter to. I'm just kind of anal in that regard and make sure I set it up exactly right. So now I have this map, but it's still a rather big map if I saved it. So I'm going to go in here and go to the image, and I'm going to adjust the image size. So right now it's set to 300 pixels per inch. I usually use 70 on my virtual tabletop. And I know it should be 30 pixels across, or 30 squares across. So 70 times 30 is going to be 2100 pixels wide by 2100 pixels tall. I say OK to that. And that changes the size of my image. Then I can double click on this icon here for the zoom tool, and it'll make it full size. So now, and I can use the hand tool to pan around, now I can see the images just perfectly lined up with this grid, which is set at 70 pixels, I think under preferences. Yeah, preferences, guides, grid, and slices. Then I have a grid line every 70 pixels in Photoshop in my settings. And I can zoom way in on that and just make sure, yep, boom, it's right dead center. So there's that map. Now I'll save it. I'll do File, Save As, and I'll go to, well, this is the folder which has all the original maps in it. So I just changed the map description slightly. To that, and I'm saving it as a JPEG. And then there'll be a dialog box that asks me what quality to use. And this is just kind of how it interpolates the pixels. And the lower this value, the worse quality, but also the smaller file size. So you can see with the quality set to 12, it's a file size of 5.5 megabytes. And you really want to try and keep Roll20 VTT maps below, definitely below 5 megabytes. And then the smaller you can make them, the better. So I go down to usually 4. You can see that takes it down to 716K. And say OK to that. And you can't hardly tell the difference in the map. If I go full size, this is what it would look like on the tabletop. So that's saved. Let's just see what it looks like inside Roll20. So here's my map. And Roll20, I'll just go to the map layer. Actually, I'm going to change maps or make a new one. So there's that. Then I can change the size of the map. I'll just make it 30 by 30, so it should be exactly the size of what I'm bringing in. OK to that. Make that my active one. I'm on the map layer. Now I can just take and drag the map that I have onto the layer. And most of the times it'll bring it in and match the grid. Sometimes I'll have to drag it to match the right grid corners. Okay, so it's brought it in. And now I can drag it into position, and you can see it fits exactly. It's exactly right on the lines. Well, as close as I can zoom into the lines. And now I can bring in some creatures and such. So if I wanted to have a Cibriex living somewhere in the stables of this place, I could have that there. And you can see the quality is just extremely good. It's a very, very small map, and it's all set up for the encounter. I changed the Cibriex to the object layer to make him so he's got his hit point bar and his radius of contamination, which for these things is 30 feet. So there's that. I do the same for each of these other maps, and I'm just going to do them without much dialogue, but maybe as I go through them, there might be more tips and stuff that come to light, so you can watch that as we go. Or you can drop out here. Alright, so I'm going to go, let's see, I got the no roof done. I'm going to turn off all the no grid ones, just delete them because I won't use them. I'm going to take the no roof one and delete it because I'm done with it. I'm going to take the roof one, open it in Photoshop. Again, take the selection tool, then right click on it and transform selection. And then take the upper corner, which last map we saw was right on at 0, 0. So we'll usually on the rogue maps, they are all consistent within the same map set. So if that 0, 0 point was exactly right on, it's probably going to be right on for the rest of these until they change to the smaller size maps, which we'll see in a second. I know we needed 9909 pixels instead of percentage, and 9909 pixels. And that should be right on. Let's look and see. We'll zoom in to the bottom again, see if it was trimmed off like the last one was. Oops. I reset that because I moved the location there. got on some tool that moves that I don't know how to turn off, so I'll just set it there. Accept the selection. Now I should be able to zoom in. Transforming it. 009909 9909. Now if I zoom to this corner, we'll see. Okay, it's a little bit short from the edge. It didn't quite extend all the way to the edge on this map. This side is right on line, so that's good. We'll accept it. Then we'll use the crop tool, click in the icon, accept it. Now it's cropped. So this map, just to give you an idea, this is still like 300 pixels in size. So if I go File, Save As, and just keep it that full name and hit Save. I'll ask if I want to replace it. Yeah. It will calculate the size here for us, I think, in a second. Maybe not. There it goes. 107 megs. So enormous at 300 pixels per inch. So I'll go to image size. And I will go to 70 pixels per inch resolution. And I'll make it 2100. And OK. And that's right on. And this one's only different than the other one in that there's roofs on these buildings here. So I'll do File, Save As. Same name, but with roof. Save. Again, change this setting down to 4. And OK. There, I got 2 maps now. If I go back to the folder, I can see my 2 maps. I'll delete this one. I normally don't keep these guys just because they're so large that it would really stack up on me. They're on my RPG now, drive-through website. I can re-download them if I need to. So I'll delete that. Then, these cool little grottos come with this map. These are like areas below the garden building that's on the main map. So right-click on one of these guys, open with Photoshop. So here you come down some stairs to a little pool, some really cool tile work, a little mausoleum, or maybe these are benches. Okay, so this one's going to be tricky. So if it doesn't quite extend perfectly to the edge, there's no way for me to check if it extends perfectly to the edge because there's no grid there. So what I do in this case is I'll draw a selection that does go to the grid that exists, and then assume the scale is the same and extend it outboard from there. So to show you what that means, I'll draw a selection like this, for example. I will right-click on it to transform it. I'll zoom in on it. I'll place the corner right in the middle, and I'll call that, so we can see that 661, 653, which means it's not going to be perfect on the edge to be 330 pixels per square. Then zoom out here. We'll see what it's 1, 2. I'm checking how many squares wide this selection is that I made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares wide. All right. So 6 squares. My width here, I can double click on it and scroll it in. There we go. So that's centered perfectly. And then my height. See, it's off a little bit. I can double click on the height. Get it right on. All right. So now I just do a little bit of math here. I know this thing should be, looks like 10 squares wide, and I have 6 of them here. And 6 of them is 1983 pixels. So if I do 1983 times 10 divided by 6, it should be 3305, which kind of makes sense for the scale of 33 and a little bit per square. So here I'm going to take 660, I'm going to call this -1 pixel for the top left. I'm going to take, let me check the height real quick while I'm at it here. The height I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pixels out of should be 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Should be 10. So this should be 10 by 10. And 4 pixels is 1322. So we got set that to 3305 like I calculated. This should be the same. 1322 times 10 divided by 4, 3305. All right. And let's see this end. So perfectly aligned here, it's 653. It should be 661 up to be 2 squares up. So that's minus 8. There we go. And I should be good. I have no way of checking because there's no grid line. The way I'll see if I'm good is after I do this change and then I scale it if the grids line up perfectly on these squares. So I'll say OK to that selection box. I'll crop it, click in here, accept the crop. Then I'll go image size, 70 pixels per inch, and therefore it should be 700 if it's 10 inches. And OK. So now I can zoom right in on here and see, yep, that's right on. That's right on. So it looks like it's right on. Now there's a little bit of an edge here where the map didn't, all the way extend to that edge there. So this one it doesn't matter much, but I'm going to fill it in just to show you what I do. On ones where there's actual openings there where characters could walk through, it'd be more important to fill in. But I just use the clone stamp tool, which clones an area. You hover over an area, click Alt, click, and then you can drag around and drag over that top. I use this a lot when I'm making tokens and such like that. And then this edge is just slightly, I think I was -1 on this edge, so it's slightly cut off. Okay, oops. So now, if I double click on this again, the map is all ready to go. It's perfectly aligned to 70 pixels per grid. It's perfectly aligned to the edges. So I'll again go File, Save As. Change the name up a little bit. If there were more than 9 of these, I'd make that 2 decimal places there so they sort right, or 2 digits there so they sort right. But it's not, so save that. And this one's not too bad in size, but since 4 looks plenty good, I'll use 4 there and it'll be even smaller and even easier to load. Say OK to that, and that map's ready. So then I'll go on to the next one. So I got Grotto 1 done, Grotto 2. Now I would expect these all to be the same as what I did on the previous settings, so I should have wrote it down. I think I had the top left corner at -1 and -7 pixels, and I had 3,305 pixels in each direction. So let me open that up and see. Now this is a really cool grotto here, so little looks like satanic cult that the characters could stumble across. These maps are really nice, and they're going to come in, I think, pretty handy in the new Waterdeep Adventure series with lots of city places to explore. So I'm looking forward to that. Alright, so I just put the selection out there, I right click on it, I click Free Transform Selection, and click the upper left hand corner of the selection and set it at -1, -7. I'm going to set it at 3305 wide, 3305 tall, and accept that. Hit the crop tool, click there and accept that. Hit the image size, set this to 70, set these to 700, and OK. And it should be hopefully right on. Yeah. So yeah, little diabolical statue, little diabolical altar, some pews in there. And again, I could do the edges using the clone stamp tool. And you can adjust the size of that tool to get bigger area, especially if you don't care too much about the details. If you're actually trying to do a passageway that extends through there, you'd be a little closer. Or if there's steps where you don't want to clone the whole step or something like that. But you can cover a lot of ground with a little bit bigger pixel or a little bit bigger stamp. There we go. That is ready to go, and who knows where that little tunnel leads to. So we do a save as again as a JPEG file. Save that, and again set that to 4 for a nice low weight map. Okay, that one's ready to go. And you would do the same thing for the third one, but I'm going to just bring these maps onto a Roll20 map so we can see what they look like. Alright, so here we are again, and these are basically coming down this staircase right here, leading to these grottos. So on my Roll20, I can make my map a little bit bigger. It's 30 wide. I'll make it 50 tall. Make sure I'm on the map layer. Then I'll bring up that directory and drag that grotto over. So there's that, and you can just kind of place it wherever you want. So beautiful looking maps again. I'll bring that other one in. There we go. So that, in a nutshell, is what I do to prepare these maps, these heroic maps. And I do the same general procedure for any maps that I'm using, where I use the selection tool to select an area of the map, and then I crop it and size it such that it lines up just right with the grids that are in Roll20. And that is it. Thanks for watching.